last 3 years, he and I played bridge together and golf together. He was a great guy, a real gentleman. He, you wanted some funny stories, but I think we made it enough funny stories when we bid. And the surprising thing about Leigh is he hated conventions. And then he gets me involved in this precision, which is all convention. But then I found out, after discussing it a bit, what he hated was conventions that took up a lot of bidding. He liked slow, either real slow and get to know what your partner has, or if you know right away what he has, you just jump to wherever you think you're gonna end up.
Yeah.
Because you didn't want to tell your opponents anything about your hand.
He would say, it's a simple game.
That's how he treated golf. And in golf, for 3 years, we had a standing bet. Who'd get the most 3 putts? In 3 years, we tied once. And it's hard to believe that if you only had 4 3-putts that day, sure winner. We were both terrible. But he enjoyed playing bridge with him. We learned what we could about precision together. I don't think either of us outdid the other guy. We were both bad. And the same with golf, we were both bad. And this year, he was so proud, he got a new driver. It gave him 10 more yards. I said, yeah, it's $200 for 10 yards. Was it really worth it? Oh yeah. If he got 15 yards, it would have been $500. It would have been a bargain. And most people would use their driver on about 14 holes. Rarely do you use it on a par 3. Except for Leigh. There were 2 par 3s that he used his driver on. So he did get his money's worth out of it.
Yeah.
He, I don't know. I miss him.
Yeah.
I'm sure we all do.
We all do. Yeah.
Just a great guy. I guess that's about all I have.
But Ralph, I have a question for you. Did you pay more for golf or for a point in bridge?
Do I do what?
Did you pay more for golf or for 1 point in bridge? Which one?
1 point in bridge costs $30. You don't get points in golf though.
Oh, I know.
I'm Mike. I'm his favorite son-in-law. His only son-in-law. And you mentioned golf, and when the first times I played golf with him, it was kind of the same thing. Not that he wasn't spectacular, but he's lining up to hit the ball, and finally I said, Leigh, the hole's over there. He says, I know. Oh. Because if the hole was there, he would line up like here, and he would hit it, and it would go that way. It defied the laws of physics. I don't know how he did that. So at that point, I did not say another word.
Yeah.
Like golf. Because because Elijah was mentioning that story. I'm not sure if you knew, he was kind of a stickler about rules.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Really? I don't know. I didn't know if you knew that or not. Yes. Anyway, he would always, remember the first time we played golf, the ball fell off the tee, he goes, that's 1. Which is a win, give me a break. Anyway, so what happened was, we were playing, my wife and our son was playing, and then they're walking up to the green, and he was talking to Elijah,
And Elijah was a young teen at this
a
point.
young teen, and basically said, this is how I would do this. And then he said, it is a one-stroke penalty to give advice on the golf course. But just so you know, I will not be taking that penalty on my scorecard. Because I'm sure Elijah was gonna check his scorecard afterwards, you know, but that was just how he was, anyway. It was fun.
One of the first times I went out with him golfing, most of us just play ready golf.
Right.
So that if you're next up,
Right.
and so I went to, his ball needed to be marked on the green, so I just stepped up there to mark the ball and he came over to me and said, only the person whose ball it is may mark their ball. Okay.
Yeah.
It might be at this point that I point out that my mother and my father never played games together.
Probably the reason
It's
why.
not a thing that happened.
Parcheesi, maybe.
No, I'm pretty sure Mom, I don't know, do you think she would've stayed for Parcheesi? No.
Well, it wasn't anywhere to go.
All right.
Well, I have a flip side of that story for of playing golf with Leigh. I got to play twice with him. Most of you know that I work with a man named Chuck, who is developmentally disabled. He's in his 70s. Chuck and I are good friends at this point, and we've twice wound up playing with Leigh over at River Ridge, and he was just exactly the opposite with Chuck. He loved him, and he was very accommodating to everything we were doing. There was no worry about the rules with this guy.
Right.
And then the other thing about Leigh that I remember was the first time I played bridge with him. We were setting up our convention card, and we were talking about carding and discards. Now, I don't know how much his family knows about bridge, but carding and discards. Leigh said, my carding and discards are intended to confuse the opponents as much as possible. And if it confuses my partner so much, the better.
That
Sounds like Dad.
And he proceeded to do that.
Yes.
Absolutely, I'm his partner.
I got a little bit of a funny story. Leigh and I went to Albany one time to play in a tournament up there. And I have a great big, everybody here knows I have a great big old Cadillac. So he had a little tiny car, and I said, well, we're gonna ride in my car. And he said, oh, okay. He said, that'll be fun. So we get about halfway up there, and he says to me, you know what, this makes me feel like a little kid. And that just struck me funny, and I've always laughed about that, because this is a great big car, and he's little, but it doesn't make me feel like a little kid. That was good. I always remember him saying that.
Funny.
Yeah. He said a few choice things, but anyway. He was a really good guy.
No kidding.
Susie,
Yeah, I have a little something too.
well,
Of course.
So, I don't know how Leigh became such a good friend to me, and I to him, but I figured it out. We developed our friendship in 45-minute increments. What we did is we would drive up to Corvallis to play bridge, and it's a 45-minute ride up and a 45-minute ride back. And the bridge was fine, and we weren't there, just, that was kind of an incidental thing. But we would talk about art and singing and religious stuff and family stuff and all kinds of things on our way up and our way back. And as you might imagine, there was one topic that was very hard. We fought like two wet cats when we would talk about politics. And we would just go around and around in what I call a circular argument. But you said, well, no, you said, and so finally one of us was smart enough to say, let's agree to disagree. And the other one said, fine. And then we'd sit there and fume for a couple more minutes, and then one of us was smart enough to just bring up another, what about that hand 5? And we just, we just get right back into our friendship. And and by the way, with Ralph, I mean, these two were like, one time I asked him how long they'd been married. I mean, that was very entertaining.
Oh, we talked politics. We only talked about what we agreed on. One thing, climate change. That's all we could talk about. Everything else was off base.
Ralph, that's new to me. Was Leigh in on climate change?
Yeah,
Oh, he was.
he didn't practice it, but he was. He believed that we're responsible.
So I just
You know,
wanted to.
I'll say that's news because he wouldn't admit that to us.
Yeah.
And we, for the most part, just stayed away, because most of us are far more left than he was. Would just stay away from all those concepts entirely.
Yeah.
But I will say that he actually had books on how to argue these points. So not just books on what the facts are, but books on strategically how to argue
With the left.
with the left on this. Just like it would be like a bridge book or something like that. He had a book, if they bring up this, these are your 3 words you can only do. So he actively studied on how to argue this. And it's like, wow. So yeah, if you got him to agree to climate change, with us, it was always, it cools down, it warms up, it cools down. It used to be global cooling. We were all afraid of global cooling. Now it's global warming.
Yeah, there's always weather. There's been weather for forever.
And thousands of species go extinct every day. It's always been that way. It's always going to be that way. They're just going to go extinct. And it was always this hand, this royal gesture. And this is by decree.
So I just was gonna finish up, when I moved into my new house about 3 or 4 years ago, I got a call from Leigh and he says, I'm coming over. I said, well, okay. And he brought with him, and I think you know this, Kristen, he brought with him a heather plant, and he said, so you don't have to water it, or you can overwater it and get really hot or really cold. This thing won't die. So he was right. That plant, when I walk out my front door, I have a little front yard, and there's the Leigh plant, and it's sort of my little memorial for him. And so I want to thank your family members for letting me come by to say goodbye and sing and give him a hard time and all that. I don't think I could have done my grieving very well without that little time with him. So I really appreciate
It was a really
you.
beautiful.
I really appreciate you all.
Very nice.
We have to give credit to Ann, for Ann knew how to reach you know, and she knew how to reach certain people, and we would have known nothing.
Yeah,
If
thank you,
we
Ann.
didn't have Ann as that conduit for like, we need to reach out to some people, we just would have come up quietly and that would have been the end. So
Yeah.
we wouldn't have known how to find all of you. Dad very much lived his life in little boxes.
Uh-huh.
And like this little box doesn't necessarily talk to this little
Yep.
box, but this little box is super important, but it does not talk to this little box. And
Uh-huh.
so.
But he talked of you, all of you that are here, all
Yeah.
the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, at least to me, he did. So, yeah. I pretty much figured out who was who, and I don't even see him before, you
Right,
know.
right.
And nor could you, one thing, he never put up pictures of anything in the house. We didn't know that he actually saved them. He actually saved all the pictures of everything, but he just would not display them anywhere.
Yeah.
So he had everything saved, but they were all in boxes and put away. So he never got rid of any of it. It's all filed in his bizarre way of filing things. We were saying that,
But he talked.
he saved everything, but he saved it in such strange ways and filed under such strange ways that if anybody else from the outside were to come in and try to find stuff, it would be impossible, because he had it in ways that you would never figure out where they were on purpose. to confuse, so nobody could ever take stuff or find it, because they would have to like go through 7 different things of what it said it was. And we joke because he kept all of his tax returns in the paper returns and the Pendaflex files. but each of them were in a filing cabinet.
But each year was different.
Each year was different.
Because each year was different because he would save the receipts for each year under a different city name in Texas.
And he never lived in Texas.
Yeah,
So-
so he would always say, you see Waco, Waco, that was all the receipts for 2020 tax return. Waco, Texas, or Texas, it was all a different city in Texas for his taxes.
And everything was like, so like going through and trying to get through stuff is like kind of trying to find things in like an Agatha Christie Easter egg hunt. And it's like everything's there, it's all filed under this totally, thought out system,
Yeah.
but nothing is what it says it is. So it's pretty interesting.
Wow.
We would every once in a while, we would have somebody come in off the street, wander in during a game, and clearly somebody who was struggling with sort of, and Leigh would, and I'd have to greet him and kind of move him on. Leigh would always say, one of my people.
Yeah. Well, I always appreciated Leigh. I was in charge of running the sectionals and some of the regionals for a while, and I'll tell you, he was very patient, and I can be a little high strung, and. That's not a joke.
I rest my case.
And very calming, and it was like, don't worry, it'll get done, and he could take charge, and he was willing to help anybody and play with anybody who didn't have a partner, and he was just always there.
Yeah.
In case he was needed, and it's very much appreciated.
Yeah.
And that's honestly the exact kind of dad he was to me. Like, no matter how my life went through a train wreck or off track or whatever, he'd be like, okay, and we're okay. And what's the plan? How are we gonna do this? We're okay. I'm gonna hug you. We're gonna keep moving on. I'm like, all right, here we go. Motoring back through, Your junior high boyfriend just dumped you again. Okay, let's keep going. So, yeah.
That's him.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, he's gonna be missed. You
Mhm.
need to leave, John?
I played with Leigh a fair amount, especially early on. He taught me Room Salt Convention, which was really a great convention. And when we had like a sectional or a tournament where we all were supposed to pitch in, nobody pitched in more than him.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's really nice to get the other side of the story from you all. So I gotta go, but thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, John.
Bye, John. Yeah, not only did your grandpa and your dad always, he was just there and it was always handled, you didn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But the worst job you can have inside our little subculture is a partnership chair. And, it's a horrific job. And he took that on and he just did it. Yep, okay,
Several
yeah, I'll
years.
do that, yep.
Yep.
I can attest to that because I'm not exactly a hot ticket item, and I'm wandering around looking for someone to play with me at the tournament. And so I went to the tournament desk and Leigh said, well, I'll play with you. And so we played, and it was the only goal points I got the whole time. And he also taught me something really valuable, which I sometimes forget, and is that if you don't understand what your partner is saying, bid again.
Don't listen to that.
No, good advice, all strange future forcing.
Yeah.
We need to hear from the granddaughter.
Don't have to.
No, I'm just thinking about what I want to say. I mean, he was a great grandfather. He's always, like Mom was saying, like very supportive of, my education. I gather he has told everybody here that I went to law school. which is wonderful. Yeah, it's been great. I mean, he wasn't always super local. I mean, here is a little far from Sacramento area. But I have great memories of him growing up, and he was always like so kind and so like good with kids that looking back on, I think I was telling some people about this, like he would get into the Harry Potter books, and we would read the Harry Potter books as a family with him and my grandma Kathy. And, his love of gardening has always been there. And, when I was a kid, you go out to the lemon tree, you get lemons, you bring them inside, you make lemonade, you make whatever the garden is in the garden, like that's what you eat. And that was how it was being at Grandpa's house. I remember something that Mom reminded me of. He always loved spiders. They're useful for gardening. They are very useful. They're not an insect, they're arachnid. But he always, whenever we went to visit him at his house down in Los Angeles, there were spider webs. And so he'd you go the tour of this is where this one is, this one lives here, this is the kind of spider it is, this is why it's useful. And if you go over here, this is the spider that's over here. And I'd see the same spiders multiple years. There was always one in the front, by the door. So he would never clean up cobwebs because the spiders are doing something useful. So you don't clean up.
Right.
They're providing a useful thing for the garden. So I have a lot of memories of, being outside with him. A lot of being outside and doing, walking, Disneyland. He was a good sport with Disneyland.
That's probably a good way to put it too, being a good sport.
Good sport, he's a good sport.
Because I remember growing up and being little, and he detested Disneyland. Because at one point, when we were young, Dad had hair like my hair now. And in Disneyland in the early 70s, you could not go to Disneyland as a man with long hair. They would not let you in. Yes.
It was serious.
And so he was very angry about this and detested Disneyland. And I remember one time when we had family come out from the East Coast when Uncle Larry was out and stuff, and I had long hair as a kid, and I must have been 10 or 11. And I needed to get my hair cut to go to Disneyland. And because they wouldn't let a long-haired boy in either. And I didn't want to get my hair cut, and I climbed to the top of the tree and would not come down from the tree until, to get my hair cut. So they actually finally got me down from the tree. But, and so it was all very funny, but he really detested Disney at that point. And so for him to go and really be a sport at Disneyland,
Big progress.
was sign of big love to you.
Yes.
That was not love of Disney, that was love of Leigh. So, and he also saved all of, Kristen's probably told you, he had all of your letters and stuff that you had written to him. He saved all those.
So here's a Leigh Jr. story. Leigh was up here quite some number of years ago now, but visiting briefly. And he was just ready to leave, and I said, "Oh no, wait! I got to get a photo of you and your dad." And I don't know quite what was going on between the two of them at the time. However, getting them into the same frame was a bit of a challenge. But we got it.
He towards the latter years, he got easier to photograph that way. But it was not big on public displays of affection type stuff, things like that. After a while, I think he realized that it was important for posterity for him to have these pictures, but it was not his default setting. This was okay, this needs to be done, so I'll do it. But that was not hey, I'd love to take a picture. This one over here is the photographer for the family, and she's got more pictures than Getty.
If you don't take them, they don't exist, so somebody's gotta
Which
take
was
them.
exactly what we were going for most
I
of the time.
know,
so.
and yet I still know that you exist, because I have pictures.
It was funny, I was walking Luna out by his house and down by the river there, and we don't have a river really near where I live, and I really hadn't had her in water, didn't know how she was gonna react. It turns out, I think she's half lab, and she has no fear of water and would just be entirely all the way in the river if I let her go in there. She's just 100%, so she's this is great stuff. And then I'm walking back, and this couple was walking along the path, and they said, "Oh, we saw your dog down there in the water. She really likes the water." I said, "Yeah, she does. She's not used to it." I said, "I'm up here from Sacramento." And they said, "Well, what are you doing up here?" And kind of get into it. I said, "Well, actually, not the best circumstances up here for Dad, and just he recently passed." And they said, "Oh, what was his name?" And I told him Leigh Wells. He said, "Oh, we know Leigh." And it was his friend Artie that he plays golf with.
Oh, wow.
And it was just out of the blue, so we just ended up talking for like 15, 20 minutes on the path there. And he said, "Oh, I play golf with your dad all the time." He's not a good golfer. but he had these stories of like, and it was just like, it came out really early. He said he wasn't good.
Well, I will speak in his defense, because the last round, he has evolved into what we refer to as old guy golf.
Yeah.
And it was just short down the middle, and we would all report our scores and da-da-da, and Leigh would be one under all of us. It was just like, okay, so.
Yeah, that was his game, straight down the middle, just short, predictable.
His game was very steady and very consistent at the end.
No
Well, and my
conventions.
game was always the exact opposite of that. My game would be better scored with how many balls did I lose. Because they were like bananas this way, that way, right, all this stuff. But then Artie had said that they got into a couple of these tournaments where they, like the scratch tournaments where they match a good golfer with a high handicap golfer and things like that. And he said a couple of these tournaments where Dad was the one with a high handicap and he would come out and they'd win the tournament. And people were angry. They're like, how did they win? I mean, that's impossible. He said it happened more than once. It's funny stuff.
Okay.
And he still loved the spiders all the time. I didn't share his love of spiders. I can appreciate them, but I think spiders should live where spiders live. People should live where people live, but.
And never the twain shall meet.
Yeah, and the spiders where you're not expecting them is just not a good thing. I think most people agree with that, but he's like, "Oh, the black widows. Oh, you don't have to worry about the black widows. They eat other spiders." That's nice. They can eat other spiders somewhere else, not my animals. But like everywhere, like trying to walk even in his yard now, it's like he especially loved the orb spinner spiders, the big garden spiders, and he loves us. But walking in the garden, in the yard at night without a light is not advised. I know it's their yard, that's outside, I get it, but yet, if you don't want them on your head, don't walk without a light out there, because they're all over, so.
That's cool to know.
He definitely taught us a lot about dogs too, he always had his dogs with him. Always having dogs with him.
Around for Leigh? Around for Leigh?
Well, your dad and your grandpa will certainly always be a part of our community. He's greatly missed, and we really appreciate that you reached out and give us a chance to sort of process it all.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, thank you so
This,
much.
this group was tremendously important to him.
Kristen, I think I'm gonna update, we were texting back and forth about the coffee things, and, I think I'm gonna change my mind. The unit could use those, and it would just be sort of a nice thing, because Leigh was coffee.
He always
And
makes
so,
it.
it would be nice to have those. I think people would just say, "Oh, there's Lee's coffee."
Right.
Okay,
So,
good.
Yeah, they're like the
Yeah.
big,
Industrial
yeah,
strength.
the big things, yeah.
Oh, that's a great idea.
the club really doesn't need it, but the unit could use it, and I think it'd be a nice thing to have.
Right,
So-
sure.
I think that was a big
Sold.
part of his,
Okay, all right.
Sold to the highest
Yeah.
that was part of his AA stuff too, I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
was it was always a big thing about being of service, and I was able to, I haven't been in the program a lot myself too, I was able to go to a lot of meetings with him and both in Southern California and up here and stuff like that, so the big part of his makeup was being of service to people.
Absolutely, and he
Yeah.
was, and he was.
Yeah, I kinda got at the end that, in AA, that he was sort of the grand poobah and didn't get in the, as he would say, get in the gutters with my people. He stopped doing so much of that, but he was just there, and if people needed a resource, he was the resource, so I think he took on a different role
his time was short.
Oh, you do?
I do. The more I look around the house and the more I think about how he was tidying up and the more, I was telling, Leah, over the last couple of years, he accepted every invitation we gave to him. Anything that we offered, he said yes, he said yes, he said yes, he said yes,
Really?
and it was different. And I think he just had that sense of, I don't know how much more time I have. And so I think he probably was also limiting how much people might be, you know, that he wouldn't wanna drop a ball on somebody that needed a sponsor that was
Yeah.
super solid, so.
Maybe after his heart surgery.
I think that was definitely a big wake up for him, because I think that really surprised him.
Oh, yeah.
Because he had been as active as he was.
Tremendously active.
And
Yeah.
as a typical Leeism there, I remember, because he said he would navigate, like if he was going from place to place, he would navigate from McDonald's to McDonald's. And that's pretty much where he went. And I remember one time talking about some of the dubious health benefits of navigating from McDonald's to McDonald's. And he just poo-pooed it. He just said, you know, it's really not what this is about. He says, what's much more important and a bigger determination on how long people live is how elders in society are treated and respected by the younger members of society. And the more that they're respected by the younger people, the longer these people live and the better they do. And the society that does that treasures their elders, they live longer. And it's you know, it's not diet, it's the society stuff. And after, which was a really noble and good thought, and probably really true in a lot of ways. But after the bypass, McDonald's kind of got cut out of out of the litter box. And I think that kind of surprised him that he really just.
Ice cream had to go away and he was sad.
He used to come in with an ice cream cone. Bridge.
And Kristen, we've mentioned this to you, we know that it's gotta be a hassle from the 8 hours coming up, but, you know, if there's anything we can do to help get all that stuff wrapped up and everything that goes with that, you know, you just have to let us know, so.
Yeah, we're still, you know, since we obviously live so inconveniently close. We're
Yes.
doing these little pop-up, go away, pop-up, go away, pop-up, go away, and so we're kind of sorting out.
Sure.
And then, I think I just told you this morning, the bridge club said that when we're down to the end, that they would help us. So it may very well be that at the end, we're like, okay, who can help with whatever
Yeah.
might be here, but I mean, we have books galore, we have canning things galore, we have, I mean,
And there are some really good places for all
yeah,
that stuff
that's
that
what
we
we're
can
thinking,
tune
yeah,
you into.
we've been doing research.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a Friends of the Library has a used store that is a really great place, and so anyhow.
Right, yeah.
We can, but whatever we can do, you just need to let us know, so.
Thank you.
Send us all your recommendations for like charities, places to donate, anything like that, anything, like I was just, you know, Googling organizations
Right.
here that would,
Right.
you know,
Me
have
too.
need for different types of things, but if you personally know of any kind of organizations
Sure.
or individuals, like
Hook
things.
up with all of that, and you
Yeah.
heard about being nice to your elders, right?
I did, it was, yes, noted.
I feel like we should give you a couple Leigh stories that you might not,
Okay,
that might
yes.
not be intuitive.
Yes, okay.
Like one of the memories that I have that usually most of my friends don't also have is those weekends when, like you go on the weekend-long motorcycle ride with the Hells Angels, and you camp.
Wow.
For the weekend, like you do. And Dad was never in the Hells Angels, but he biked with, you know, he always had a motorcycle. Every 2 years he had a new motorcycle, he always had a motorcycle. But just, you know, that, like, we're just gonna travel with our friends. Did you know that the Hells Angels travel with like a little sag wagon? So like if you're tired of being the person in the back on the bike, you can just go ride in the wagon with all the women and the children and the whatever, and we just camp and we would make food and have a great time, and I'm like,
Oh.
apparently not everybody else Did that? I didn't know.
He swore to me that the safest place to drive in LA is right down the middle on your motorcycle. Right between the lanes.
Right.
Well, what if
Yeah.
somebody turns, you know?
Yeah, and you're paying attention,
Yeah,
right,
no,
yeah.
he was.
So Kristen, I gave your dad the ride up when he picked up his Moto Guzzi
Yeah,
in Portland, and, so I'm there, and he's there checking and scoping it all out, and, so he's on it, and and I said, so are we okay here, Lee? Oh, I'm good to go, yeah,
Was that when it was raining too? Didn't he ride that home in the rain?
That particular day it wasn't, but it would've.
Yeah.
I remember when, I was a new driver, and for whatever reason, so we lived up in Topanga Canyon, so you had to drive out of the canyon to get into the valley to where the rest of the world lived. And for some reason, whatever it was, I was driving home in a car, and my dad was on the motorcycle. And we get to that last stoplight before you enter the canyon. And I'm like, hi, Dad! And he's like, no. Light goes green. He is off like a shot, like, he is gone. And I get home and I'm like, what was it? Like, Dad, what was that? He's like, I did not want you trying to drive and keep up with me.
Oh.
Because you would not have driven well, and it would have been unsafe for you. I needed you to know that you couldn't catch me, so you would drive like the good driver that you are and get home safely.
Now, on
That's
that-
a good dad.
Now, on that same canyon road one time, and I was driving, this was back when I was driving one of their cars, so I think I was driving the Ford Fiesta, and he was, I think.
The one you parked in a tree one
I
time?
did park that.
Sam?
But I was coming back and I was coming down this one long straight, and I pulled over in the passing lane. I'm going down the hill passing, and around the corner comes another car coming up the hill, and I'm looking ahead, and it's my dad in the other lane. So I'm driving his car in the passing lane towards him,
Which
seeing
way?
him.
I can hear his word going, there are no passing.
There were no words required. It was the bird flipped straight out like this, right at me, and I passed him with the bird flag as I'm going by, and I'm like, that's gonna be an interesting conversation when we get home. and then when I did later, one time coming home from a movie, was driving through these twisty canyon roads, and it was starting to mist and rain, and crashed that car, and we kind of lost control of it and went off the road and ended up in the top of a tree in the canyon, kind of off the road, and came up out of this canyon. I had just come back from seeing The Omen, if you remember that movie, which was a pretty spooky movie, right? And I came up, I crawled out through the mud and all the stuff and up to the top of the hill, and who was at the top of the hill was our local reverend. Right, which if you just saw The Omen, the last person you expect to see when you come to the top of the hill is the Reverend. And I'm thinking, no, I knew him, but it was just too weird. I'm like, all right, where are the Rottweilers? We'll hear that. Right? So anyway, and so it was Reverend Atkins, and he said, Lee, is that you? I'm like, yeah. He said, I guess I need to call your dad. I'm like, yeah, I guess you probably do. And so he went home and he called Dad, and Dad's first words were, is he okay? He said, yeah, he's okay. He said, well, he won't be when I get
Not when I get through it.
And then, for all of you that know, like, since up here, he has been Mr. NRA, right? He was just all over the gun range and had all these guns and all this stuff like that when I was a kid. And we would get the little plastic army men and the cowboys and Indians and stuff. But by the time I would get them for Christmas, all the guns would be cut off, all the cowboys. And so my dad was a hippie who cut all the guns off of and he was a Marine, but he was a hippie who cut all the guns off the toys I had. So when I got the cowboys, they were Indians and non-violent cowboys.
That is interesting.
So to see him in his later years be so NRA was just, it was such a turnaround. So they were interesting times. But he always loved his dogs and always had lots of them around. And as he was there in the bed, Luna was there with him sometimes, and he would, one of the most basic things that he did, he would just reach, even when he was having hard times communicating, his hand would go out instinctively and scratch your ears and nuzzle her head, and that was just, it just came to him so naturally. He was
Yeah.
just really a dog person, and, that's, that and love of music were a couple things I really got from him, and he
Yeah.
always had all the instruments around and turned me on to a lot of really good music, and we had a chance to play some good music for him. So it was a couple days.
Before we wrap up, Ann, do you have anything you wanna say, or no? Okay, sorry, I don't wanna. Sherry says I love putting people on the spot.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for
everybody.
this, this was
Yeah.
so sweet, thank you for being here and letting us, sharing your dad with us.